Okay, and then the purpose of this kind of getting together is to share, talk about the new school year coming up. Doug and I have collaborated a little bit with the other universities around a little more clarity around the project. So we're hoping to gain some feedback from you today in sharing a student self evaluation rubric. And then, yeah, and then we'll use the remaining portion of our time to kind of chat to figure out what you might need from us and gearing up for the new school year. All right, so. Oh, Susan, send me a Google, the link to the Google Classroom isn't working, if you'll send us a Gmail account, you can email me or Doug. We'll add you in. Another way to do it. Gmail works best. If you just have a personal account or something like that, it works really well.
Are you pulling up the rubric?
I'm trying to share. This is that. Yeah, I will pull up the rubric. I'm also going to drop it in the chat.
Perfect.
Terry, it won't let me into the class on my other account.
Okay. Oh, Susan says she's in. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. What we'll do, we won't take up a ton of time on the classroom. I just wanted, if anybody wanted to be able to click in and add themselves or join in. But if you're unable to get in, just shoot us an email with your Gmail account. Again, not a school, like if you function out of Google Classroom and you use a school email address to get into that, don't send us that email. Send us a Gmail of some sort, and that'll allow us to be able to more easily share that. Oh, and I think you all should see kind of like the class code there. But again, it's not that right now is not really the essence of what we're sharing right now. I just wanted to be able to give you the most updated at this time. And that's what it'll look like at the top. You'll see transition to engineering.
I think the big thing as far as the difference between the classroom between last year and this year is the WKU logo is on all the slides. Like last year we added Louisville and Murray. This year we added WKU. Great to have them involved, but we do want them to have brand recognition. I think as far as change in curriculum, I think it's less than 5%, and so it's a very small amount. And so to what level you're able to switch things out, like, is nice for WKU to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, good point. Yep. Yeah, there's very little in terms of content that has changed. I did also, do we want to do dates right now, just so everybody can have them?
Sure.
All right, so we do have some dates that may be pertinent for you in terms of planning for this school year. Thinking about towards the end of the school year, these kind of impact you usually towards the end, but in terms of backward design, thinking at the university level, we're going to need the portfolio submitted by May 8th. And we'll look at the portfolio. So if you're kind of thinking it connects to the rubric that we're going to talk about. The final exam testing window that we'll be looking at is May 13th through the 15th. So if you want to go ahead and even start talking to counselors or however you want to do that, if you've got students on multiple days and things like that, you may want to think, because we do want you to give the exam, the final exam, on a single day to all of your students at once. And then the kickoff this year is going to be at UK. And that's already been scheduled for November 21st. So in terms of these on-campus events, just so you're aware and kind of to remind you, none of them are required. We will send out sign-up forms for those because space sometimes can become an issue, and as we continue to grow, it does tend to become that way. So we'll just need you to sign up once we send those out. But we're just giving you the dates so that you can start some planning if these are things that you want to participate in. At U of L, we'll do the roundtables again. We're not going to do them in the engineering garage this time. I've got a larger ballroom space similar to the kickoff. That way we'll have not as crowded and cramped, but just as many faculty and industry folks coming to sit down and hear about your students' projects at that time, and that'll be February 13th. And we're working with Murray and Western to hopefully, I'm fairly certain Murray State will have something probably on their E-Day, and then we're working with Western. So we wanted to make sure to at least put those on there that you kind of were hoping. Our engineering design and innovation showcase has already set their date. And we had several schools come this past spring to do their final projects. So if you're local or even willing to kind of drive in, Lafayette came in last year and did poster presentations that were really cool. That's set for April 17th. So if that's something that you're interested in, again, I'll send out a sign-up form and gather information about those projects. What we do in that's the same day that our Speed Senior capstone presentations are going on. So we have our T2E projects right alongside the senior capstone projects from the engineering school. So those are dates that you may want to know about, be relevant in your school planning. And then
my one thought with that, as far as the schedule, is we do have Arthur again this fall, and so if you are planning on coming to the kickoff or something like that, what I would like that process to be, if possible, is have you introduce the idea of a project, have them brainstorm the idea, and then have him come by or another university rep just to sort of pre-filter those ideas. I know I'll probably do some visits. I know Terry will do some visits, but I know Arthur is going to have that be a focus of his time. And that way you can be efficient with it. Because I just kind of feel like the best benefit of us coming in is having somebody giving a second thought on ideas of as far as this project's a good idea and bad idea. And that also will hopefully get rid of some of the weird ideas that are unobtainable before they talk to faculty, like hey, I'm going to have the drone leave my house and fly over the highway and take pictures of the highway and send back and see whether or not it's busy or not. Like, well, that's a crazy idea. And so hopefully filter it down to where everyone has something more achievable.
so are we ready to jump into rubric now,
Yep.
you think? All right.
Mhm.
All right, so the PDF that I shared over in the chat will take you to the student self-evaluation. So here's the intent. Our in terms of reviewing these projects and going through them, we really think there's a lot of value in students being able to know out of the gate what the expectations are, um, and being able to figure out what they're gonna accommodate and what they think is valuable working through their project. So what we've done is taken basically the simple guide in terms of defining their problem and tried to work from the mindset the clear is kind and articulate what that looks like, and then what we're looking for, we being maybe the university at the end looking at their portfolio, but also what they need to communicate out to those that are listening to them when they present about their project and as they work their way through it. So thinking about the design process that we have outlined, we have broken this evaluation. This is intended for students to be able to go through as they're working on their project, kind of thinking through those components and making decisions along the way in terms of what is most relevant for their project and what they might have to give and take on. So we kind of just created a point system out to the right in terms of trying to help them understand expectation wise what we would weight in terms of like what's the level of importance. And it goes down through, so from defining the problem through conceptualization, starting to think through ideas and processing those. Again, thinking back into those dates, like if you're processing out, like generating ideas towards the kickoff, these first two things are really play in. Then we're talking in terms of mathematical modeling, what how do our students connecting to mathematical relevancy, like can they connect to their physical builds or designs to mathematical equations, ways of being able to explain what it is that they're designing and why. And then in terms of this project, we look for 3D modeling. That is a skill that we at the university, when we talking about the credit option, when we award a student the credit, we are saying that they have demonstrated that skill. And so through their portfolio, we're looking for, have they integrated some type of 3D model of their project in such a way that it's relevant. And again, the scoring process out to the side allows them to justify or figure out how they're going to work with that. Code interaction, what we're looking for is really like, can they take a flow chart and explain the functionality of that? How are they integrating that in? And then being able to think through the challenges and how they overcame those. Schematics play into the planning. So a lot of these projects, as you all know, it comes down to the planning, being able to plan out and make decisions along the way. So each one of these pieces in terms of system planning, prototyping, and quantitative data, what we're talking about is being able to integrate all of those things together. And we really want to see students be able to demonstrate that. Taking data that they determine that they need to then inform their design decisions going forward is really an engineering skill that we're looking to see that they've developed some through this project. So each one of these lines underneath the headings is intended to just expand upon what that means, not necessarily a checklist. Like if I build a working prototype, check, I'm going to get all of those 25 points. What we're trying to communicate is that if they have a prototype, does it help in their ability to justify the concept that they are trying to prove? So I don't know if it helps, but as we kind of go through here, what is really neat to see is when a team generates, and through their portfolio, we'll kind of show you the slides that we have that map into this rubric, but the SWOT analysis. So if you've never heard of a SWOT analysis, which I think a lot of people probably have, but if not, you probably have, just didn't know it was called a SWOT analysis. But when you're evaluating the major strengths of your project and the weaknesses where it could have some pitfalls, opportunities or where you can find growth within your product or project, and then threats are typically your limitations, things that either you can or can't do anything about, but you acknowledge them in terms of limitations to the overall project and ability to kind of progress it forward. And then we're really looking to see that they reflect through that process. That's really impactful. With this rubric, this is a kind of a newish, but probably not new to everybody. What we know, mentorship has a huge impact on students in this process. So what we want to try to encourage, and notice that it's not a huge impact in terms of scoring out to the side in terms of weighting, but we do want to try to encourage, that's sort of our lens at the university, to encourage mentorship that will help you from the instructor piece, right? So just kind of articulating underneath that, students working with a mentor, not necessarily being fully guided by a mentor, but working with a mentor who can help in progressing them forward through the process of the project. And then we have the presentation, and we've tried to articulate out. Oh, it probably was supposed to do, again, this is a working document, not full, so you see they provide. I'm not sure. I'll have to look and see. That was probably supposed to be deleted. But the presentation, looking at, can they present in a way that communicates what their initial intent of design was, and did they achieve that final design? And then all the way down, we really, one of the most helpful things when I was reviewing and evaluating projects this past year was having a working video or a video of your project working. So the students create and provide to us a 1-minute quick video showing us that their project works, and articulating that is really helpful. Right. So Doug, do you want to drive?
Sure. So that is our initial attempt at it. I think when I view this, I look at it as not wanting to change. It's like this year I had to evaluate 46 projects, of which 45 of them passed, right? I don't want to see that ratio change in any capacity, but at least for us at the university level, I want to be more clear with that student that's like, well, why didn't it pass? And I want to be like, because you skipped this, and this, right? Um, and I just think that's going to make it to where it's a little bit easier as far as it goes for that process. That's why we want them to have that self-reflection there, so we know that they've gone into it and they've sat there and they've figured out, hey, I've got this, and I need this or I need that for it. I think it's going to allow us to just get a little bit of a better product in some capacity. I think a lot of things also to know is that we have points possible and a minimum. So we're not saying a kid has to have a mentor. We're just saying that's a valuable thing, and we want to incentivize that in that capacity. And so I could sit there and see a kid that is in a rural area and being like, well, I've got to find one of those because there's 3 magical points on that. Um, we're not saying that they have to develop an amazing 3D model, but we're effectively saying if you don't have that, your data better be great, right? Like if your prototype's terrible, your data's got to be good, right? If you have no data, everything else has to be like rock star level, right? And I don't think you can get to where you can pass without any data, right? Because I think that's where the success is and where we see things um, really standing above as far as the projects for the students with it. And so I would just have them like, you know, write that out as far as like what they think they got out of a 5 or out of a 10 on this, and have them fill that out and put that into the submission at the end. That way they know sort of what's going on. This is sort of, we've not finalized this with Western and Murray. So we do have to go through a second meeting there. Um, my mindset and my goal is just sort of allow you to be aware of what's going on, and then we will finalize everything leading up to the kickoff day, and then have everything sort of set in stone, so you're not chasing a shifting sale or anything like that. We did sit there and for help on this, I did build out a Gantt chart for you all if you desire to utilize it, which pretty much takes them through that whole process and goes through it. We do have the time commitment. We do have like bill of materials and things like that that you can do that we will send out. I'll also email it out to all your students, that exact thing. You will also have, this is the exact same self-reflection, or not the document that we upload. We're just sort of changing titles and making sure everything on, you know what? I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Can I share the screen? Sorry.
Yes.
Exciting thing with Zooms. Um, sweet. So here's that Gantt chart I was showing you real fast. It just has all the dates.
Doug,
These
I
are
was going to ask a question. Would you want us to also sign off on that we agree with what the students self-assessed on? That might save you all some time. Or we could like put some notes like, hey, we don't agree with this, but we think the score is this. Would that help you guys to, if we kind of ran through and gave it our set of numbers, like a second column to the right?
Yes, I like that. Um, yeah, I think that's fine. I think that makes it to where it's a little bit more we get your feedback, because I know there are sometimes where students have projects and with the way they present it, it's like, all right, what exactly is going on? And so I've had to reach out to educators and go, hey, what's the solution? We'll look at that and see what's best for it. I don't know if we would do a score, right? Because I think if what is it? If a kid submits something and they think that they're great, right? And then you submit it and they think that they're great, and then I look at it and I'm like, this is trash. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't want to sit there and like be competing in numbers. And so I would probably have it to where the kid fills out the score and then have a comment area for the teacher to sort of fill out, right? And that way it's
We did ask in terms of them completing this actual rubric that they include documentation of evaluation slash feedback by the instructor, other school stakeholders, and their project mentors. So really that we haven't outlined exactly what that documentation would look like, but really what we're trying to do is pull in, like, are they, so I like what Lynn is saying, like kind of adding maybe a piece where you could send that to us, but I also
I
don't
mean, I'm
wanna.
already grading and giving them a grade. So I would be glad to like attach that or attach my comments that I give them, because I feel like the comments I give them are the most valuable thing that I give them. So I'm already doing that. So it's not difficult for me to make that available in some form.
I like that idea. I think the thought is what the mechanism to do that is. So I will try to find some type of way that the feedback is provided to the university if you're grading that. All right. Um, yeah. So I like that. Let me think on that, marinate a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a non-answer. Um, so what I was showing here was this is just the Gantt chart that I put together for you all, which just has all the kickoffs in there, the round tables are in there. You can use this and modify to whatever level you desire. This is not the gospel, but it will populate their Gantt chart as far as they go along. I love Gantt charts for my class because I can sit there, have them fill out the percentage. Again, anything that is white is something that they can modify. Anything that is colored is something that they should not. Um, and what we have is if they do that, I can then sit there and see where they're at, move this date along with it, and see if they're staying up to date. Um, the things that I think are pertinent from this is in my mindset, I feel like the students need to be at the point where they can start developing a cardboard mock-up by January 3rd, right? So in other words, they have their idea, they have their schedule. That's just me looking at if it was my class, how I would do it, right? Some people are going to teach it only in that spring semester, and so that's going to impact the way they do things. This is just me looking at the most typical way that schools go about it. The submission form is changing. It's going to look it's going to look really similar. Just titles and stuff are going to change on it. The things that you will see that are different are we do want them to have the SWOT analysis thing. I think that'll be very quick for them, but I think it'll be very good as far as a reflective component for them. We do have the proof of submission. So I'm going to have them actually insert that document, take a picture, and put one in there and one on the other one, and what score they believed. And then they provide some type of justification there. Because I have had students reach out after they've submitted a project. Of course, these are kids that never didn't pass the assessment, and so but they're trying to argue about my project was amazing because of this. Can you give me points on the final? And it's like, well, that's not a thing that we're going to do, but it is it's nice for them to have more of a voice that's sort of about that. And so, what are things that are potential concerns for you, or things that are like, man, I don't like this, or I do like this, for us to sort of hear before we lock things down in stone and move forward for the semester.
I got two questions. First one is for Terry and Doug. When you talked about the PowerPoint and the submission, you mentioned a 20-minute video, but when we just went over the rubric, you mentioned a 1-minute video.
I think if I said 20-minute, I probably meant to say 20-second. Right. And so I am sorry about that. I changed it from 20 seconds to 1 minute just because that's typically the length I was getting anyway.
Okay.
And I just think the one thought on that also is I just like the kids having a video on their phone of their project. So if they're talking to a company or something like that, they can show it. The other thing is that like the way I evaluate it is I will look at that video first and then I can effectively go, this one's good, right? And then make sure the documentation's in place, right? You can just learn so much by watching this thing operate in comparison to the slides. And so it's also easier to get to that than download the thing. And so it's much faster for me to go through the video on it.
Okay. Second question is for all of you teachers out there who have done this before. There's 9 of us who haven't, and they've given us this schedule and everything is flexible. Nothing quite matches. We are our own schools and our own teachers. And do you all find that you operate more in a semester mindset? And I've got the fall through Christmas, and then it's in the spring, it's 2 different blocks, or do you just take it as a continuous year to get your students prepared?
I will answer that. I definitely look at this as a year-long class. There is no way it is broken into semesters. We don't take a break. I mean, and when I do my scheduling, I'm scheduling now till the end of the year. I did have one question, and I hope that answers your question, but I was going to ask one also, if that's okay.
That's fine.
The only problem I really had was with the math. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. One of my students, one of the projects, they built this like trash collector, and their math, actually, they calculated how much they could crush based on how strong the motors were. Is that what you're looking for? Is that the kind of thing? And that was a lot of, we did a lot of like how much can we do with, a stepper motor, if that makes any sense. So a lot of our math, that's a lot of our math. And I never knew if that was right or wrong, or if that works, or what you were really looking for with that.
I really feel like a lot of the mathematical modeling in my mind is going to be directly relational to the two Excel tables that we have built into there. Like the gear Excel table and the torque calculation. And I think those are perfect and ideal. And what you're talking about compressing with the trash compactor is like perfect. I just get, at least so my duration of watching projects over the couple decades, I just get so frustrated with the kid. All I did was build a widget. I took no intelligent thought into that going into it. And I want them to sit there and go, well, does this lever need to be this long? Does it need to be this long? Because I just think they're not going to be doing it at the engineer, like professional level, but I want them to sit there and see my math applies to my design, right? And get that mindset going on for it. And so I'm effectively saying, wow, we have mathematical modeling, da 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 da. And then like on the other side, I'm saying, yeah, force times distance, dude. Right? Like, and so it's I don't want to make it sound like a bait and switch. I'm just saying I really want them to be intentional with thinking about where are ways that we can design it. And we've got those things in the curriculum to sort of help with that to be able to utilize.
Greg, I can. This is my third year running this program, and I'll say that I also spend the whole entire year on everything. And I'm going to move a lot of my project stuff to this first semester. Usually, I kind of like the last 2 years. I kind of like really hit the ground running with the project in January, but especially with my kids last year, like we needed to start earlier because they kind of like check out in January when their college acceptances come in. And so we need to have us. So this year, especially, we're going to start. We're going to start right away. We're going to brainstorm on day one and just kind of get some ideas flowing, just so we can go to the kickoff and they can have some actually developed stuff first.
Yeah. So also on the kickoff, we do send out a template for people to fill out with their 3 ideas and the sketches and everything like that. The more developed they are, the better like feedback they'll get. Again, that event we had 280 at this last year, 280 students, and then I had 100 volunteers for it. So we have the larger ballroom because we maxed out that one ballroom. I think it's wonderful. I am I'm working on trying to get a donor for food again this year. It is a $7,000 donation probably to make that happen. And so if we can't, I'm sorry, but I think it's a valuable time.
There's some, I don't know if it's sharing.
Yeah, you got it.
Greg, I was also going to say, I agree with everyone else that it's a year long. And are you in Louisville?
Mm-hmm.
So if you like need somebody to chat with or whatever throughout the year, I would be glad to talk to you since it's your first year. I mean, you're going to have some struggles on your first year just to figure out how it works for you and your students. But I mean, I'm up in Crestwood in Oldham County. So if you want to get together on like a non-school day or something like that and chat for an hour, I can always be available as well to help out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Are there any like pressure points or points of things that you want us to debate and reevaluate in relationship to the rubric? I want to make sure that we are not asking for too much or being unrealistic, but at the same time, we're meeting our constituents and trying to structure to where they're getting the product that they want also, right? What are things that I could take back and go, man, teachers really had an issue with this or that?
I guess the only 2 things I saw, Doug, was the 3D model seems to be, I can't remember how many points that was. It was 10 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of kids they download some 3D model from somewhere and use that. So I understand that like if you are developing something, and kind of starting from scratch and doing something with a 3D model. But if they're just finding something and downloading it and using it, I'm not sure it's that many points. And I'm okay with that because there's going to be a couple of groups probably that like really don't need one, but they're going to make up for it in the mathematical modeling. So I think the points are going to be a wash anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think the thing that I'd like to be able to do is that some people will be like, I 3D modeled this square brick to put my product on. And it's like, well, that sucks, right? And I'd like to see a little bit more if you're saying this is a part that we're doing and a skill that you're bringing in. And so I'd like to see more developed versions for that. But it's something where it's like, if they're doing deep into another direction, I don't want to like say, hey, this project doesn't qualify because they're doing amazing like data collection. Um, with that being said, I do think on the rubric, I probably will add like for the code and the data, like must receive points in this area. In other words, like if you don't have code on your project, like that's ridiculous. So in other words, like while there is this flexible component, there are going to be some things, and I am speaking off out of turn without consulting Terry on this. But and so Terry, if you are in disagreement with me, you can cut me off and tell me I'm crazy. But like, I'll give you a second to do so. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. And so I could see that there's the aspect on some of the things where it's like, no, you've got to have this. You know what I mean? Like you can't not have a problem statement. You can't not have, you can have a weak problem statement in a great project, right? And we'd be fine with it, but you can't not have code, right? You can't not have any data in any capacity, right? And so, so we might add that to it. That was something I was thinking about just when we were talking earlier for it. But there are some things where it's like, yeah, if you don't do the SWOT analysis, I think you're missing out because it's super easy points and it's a good reflective thing to it. But I'm not going to reject your project based on that, right? Yeah.
I like that clarification, and I fully agree with you.
Do you feel like that we are asking more, or do you think that we are staying consistent to what we've had in the past? I don't want to feel like I'm overburdening you and saying, "Hey, I have a new."
I think we're just documenting what we've been doing kind of already. And
Mhm.
and I feel like it's nice to see it all in one place. And I think kids need to understand that in the big bad world, when you run projects, you may not be motherhood and apple pie, and you may not have every little piece. But by George, some of them you got to have. And I think that's important for kids to understand. Like, and you may run into a boss that wants to see blah, and you don't think it's important, but if that's what your boss wants to see, that's what you're going to produce anyway. And that's how I teach my kids. Like, hey, if somebody's spending $6 million for you to run a project, you run it the way they want it run. I mean, and sometimes you may not agree with it, but somebody sets up expectations, and then you have a right to negotiate things. But if somebody's paying for it, you do it the way they want it done. And I'm like, you're getting college credit for this, so you're going to do it the way the college wants it done. And I think it's a good understanding for students. Like, sometimes you may not agree, but these things are essential. And I think you almost have like, hey, here's the engineering essentials to run an engineering project.
Mhm. Okay. Other thoughts? I appreciate people agreeing with things, so definitely. So my hope that is sort of a tangential thing, and so we like the whole mentorship slide in there. I believe me and Terry have talked about that for probably an hour, hour and a half, as far as should we include that, should we not include that. Um, I feel very strongly, just anecdotally, looking at projects that have people that are mentoring them that are not you, that not that you are not amazing and everything like that. I just think someone coming outside the classroom into the classroom and saying, "Hey, do this," has been a strength that I've seen in some schools. My hope is by having it there and having it be a very minimal amount is not to put burden on you, but potentially you go, "Hey, you are a student. You have social networks that you're involved with and everything like that. Like some other people at your church, people within your family that you might be able to reach out to and say, hey, can you mentor me on this project? And I just think if we can have it to where that's a little bit more driven, I think that's a big deal and a big benefit to the student for it. The flowcharts and schematics should be completed using software hand drawn. The answer there is I don't care, but the other answer is, man, diagrams.net is a much prettier way to do those. I'm just looking at a comment that Arlene made in the chat. And so I think that's a big value. The one thing that, thank you, sir. The one thing that's sort of like on my task list is to, now that we've sort of standardized the last 2 years how to submit projects. So now I've got 300 examples, is to sit there and go, hey, this is what a 5 out of 5 looks like. This is what a 2 out of 5 looks like on those areas. Real quick, that's going to be a crazy amount of time to do that. But my hope is that I can do that at a good level to where your kids can then take that and you can go, this is why this is good and this is why this is bad, right? To sort of help out and define what's going on. And really, in my mindset, I think what's going to happen is it's just going to allow you to sort of push the expectation on kids to where it's like, no, you got to do this, you got to do this, and hopefully raise the quality of all boats with it. And again, I'm keeping a due date in my mind on that, just so you know, as like mid-October going into the kickoff, right? Because that's when I feel like when we start that process at the university, it's like this is us saying everything's in stone, and you can't have a target that moves anymore. Like it's got to be locked down.
Do you feel like, does anyone feel like we have left anything off? I know we've asked a little bit
That's
of,
a good question.
you know, we want to try to balance the scale as much as possible with the expectations being very clear and straightforward and also not terribly burdensome, but also like, do you see something and through your experience that maybe we've missed that we haven't represented clearly or haven't represented at all that you think students really should think through as part of this?
I do have a point on that subject. We do have like the submission PowerPoint that we're going to does still have an upload for the Gantt chart, but it is not on the rubric anymore. It does still have a spot for the bill of materials, but it's no longer on the rubric anymore, or not anymore. It's not on the evaluation. And it does have a spot for progression of the design. And I believe, like, so in other words, like a picture of it like 3 or 4 times as they're going along. This is what my initial mock-up is. This is what this one is. But am I correct, Terry, that that's not truly in the rubric, the progression, and it's just sort of a spot holder on the setup?
The progression of the project itself in terms of those is sort of intertwined throughout this rubric.
Okay.
So they can represent it still through the portfolio slides, but what we ask them sort of, this evaluation, again, it's not a checklist, but we want them maybe to even be generating some little blurbs, right? So they're thinking through, so to that end, it's intertwined throughout this rubric. And on the slides, I don't think we should lose those representations, because then that also allows them the opportunity to map it into the rubric. Yeah, so I mean, back to my question about if we're missing anything, if something pops in your head, I'm not gonna try to say that this is the only way that you can express your opinion. You can email us, let us know, because like Doug said, in our mind, we're trying to work from the mindset clear as kind. I mean, just being as clear with students as possible. While also us, aiding you as much as possible. So email us if something pops in that in your head that isn't really coming to you right now. That's totally fine. But we do want to try to have something in terms of somewhere in the October-ish range.
Terry, I think we have to almost use it once, and I think it's a great point to start this year, and then maybe
Love it.
we give it some tweaks next summer. But I think it's
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
starting point.
I agree.
I agree too. Awesome. Well, I'm kind of taking from this that it seems to be well received. Doug and I haven't both been in the classroom for numerous years. We didn't like the idea of adding something else to your all's plate, but we also feel it is so important. Some of these aspects that really just stuck out in evaluating these projects. So wanting from that end to make sure to ensure like those percentages of those submitted and students intending to go after that credit, that the success rate stays, right? That's our intention, and we want to provide as much support around that as possible.
So I'm actually really pleased. Like I thought this was going to be a little bit more of a man, Doug, you're adding something else to our plate. And so I was coming in pre-bristled, and so I was ready to like come back. I'm just kidding. But I expected there to be something. The I do want to share with you like the pass rate that we had. Um, it's like the pass rate. We ended up having 301 students test this year. 181 did pass the assessment, right? The really the thing that I look at that is sort of like the success failure type thing is pass rate's not a big deal to me, right? Like, because it's one, I need to know that it shouldn't be 20%, it shouldn't be 90%. Like, that's really my thought. But the one variable I look at is students that want credit and who are able to obtain it. And so this year, of that 301, 124 students said, "Hey, I'm testing for credit," of which 91 said 91 passed, right? And so you're seeing like that's because like you're gonna have kids that are like, "This engineering's not for me. I'll take this exam for you, Klein," and they're not motivated, right? It's the kid that's like, "No, I want this for credit. I'm going to engineering school." That's the one where it's like, that kid should pass, right? And so that's what I sort of look at as far as success and failure. But we're seeing, what is it, 70% of them actually pass, which I think is great. And the other ones, we're sitting there like, if they're not ready, they're not ready to go. I'm seeing this semester, I'm getting 45 kids at UK for it. Like, how many do you have at U of L, Terry?
We have 24.
24. And you guys give 2 credits, right?
And then they come into 112, which is just the special, like year 103.
Yeah. And so that's 50 credits effectively there. 48. And then you have my 45. So we're roughly giving out 200 free credits to students, which I think is awesome. In perspective, when I ran PLTW for 5 years, we gave out 6 credits over that duration of 5 years. And so to be able to do 200 plus, I think in one just session, I think is a great setup. And so I'm really pleased with the result and the outcomes that are coming there.
And
So
Doug, honestly, it's EGR credit. It's not an elective, STEM credit. So it's really more valuable.
Oh, I agree. Like, so the credit that we did was elective credit, and so so in other words, you can also take that state where it's not only just not the just generic credit, it's legitimately this is for your major, going to the school that you want. You're not being charged to it. You're keeping the A to it because, like, in my perspective, sometimes the cheat that the community colleges are doing is we'll have you pay for this credit, but then the grade doesn't transfer over. And so you have a kid that's now missing out on grade boosting things, and you have to have a 2.5 to graduate from UK, right? In engineering school. And so, like, them missing out on EGR 101 and 102, that's going to most likely be an A, was was a non-starter when we started the conversation with the university. I'm like, they can't lose that credit and thus us detriment a kid that wants to prepare for us, in my perspective. So I've been very pleased that we've been able to do that at all the universities.
And the flip
Are-
side to that is I did have, I have one at least that I know of that is deciding to go through our typical track. But has that experience. So the 110, 111 progression, those 4 credit hours, more than likely, assuming nothing, in life presents itself to this kid terribly, those are going to be guaranteed A's, which is really cool.
Yeah, 100%.
So not getting the credit is not a bad thing. Going through this experience is a really beneficial thing for them, which I think numbers are awesome when numbers continue to grow in terms of what we're meeting needs of students across the state, and allowing them to decide ultimately, like if they want to stay in state, they have the support from the engineering colleges across the state to get them in where they're going to be most successful. So that's our aim. I think it's pretty cool.
Are there what is left on our agenda for this meeting, or do we just want to sort of open it up to more flexible discussion?
The only thing that I just wanted to kind of leave hanging, we don't really have anything to offer, but so that you're somewhat aware, is the I and my department, and then I also have worked alongside Lynn over at Oldham because she's super interested in integrating artificial intelligence, generative AI components into the course in some kind of way. So I guess this is sort of like a cliffhanger. Like we'll be offering some optional pieces within the classroom in terms of activities. Lynn has done some really cool stuff with Colab, which is through Google, that runs Jupyter notebooks in the background. It's just a neat way that generative artificial intelligence is getting incorporated into coding. If you all also aren't aware, if you're downloading MATLAB 2025, that platform, the 2025 version, runs Copilot in the background. So as your students are going to be typing code, it will be generating from the background. And so they'll see that filling in. And so it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of crazy at the same time. So essentially, I'm just kind of like, we're working on some things in the background to eventually be able to start to deploy with you all. If you're interested or willing, I will just create a little blanketed statement. At the university here, our department has been the only full department that's trying to navigate Gen AI in the classroom. The university, you may be experiencing this in your class, in your schools, kind of figuring out how to handle it in the classrooms. But from our experience, our progression forward is to teach them how, and to teach them the back end and the trustworthiness of it. And because if we don't are in what we're learning from our students, we've been doing a lot of interviews trying to understand they're going to use it no matter what. So some departments in the university are like, absolutely not. You may not use it at all. I don't know how they're going to do that. So this is just to say there is some activity happening that hopefully will help you in the future. And if you have any interest in some of those things, let me know. And we'll be working towards that so that we can show you in the future some ways that maybe you can incorporate it in your teaching.
I will say that the co-pilot is something to be aware of. So like in training this week, we legitimately had resistor 1 equals this, resistor 2 equals this, resistor 3 equals this, and it auto-generated the calculation for finding parallel resistance. Like in other words, like the next line, I could just click to the right and it would be there. Um, it's something we're going to have to evaluate and adjust to, right? Like, because, you know, I bet when I was in high school, people were worried about spell check, and this is just a different type of spell check that we got to sort of adjust to and figure out how it's moving. Um, all right, well, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, we have covered our formal content right at 11 o'clock. I'm going to hang out and make sure that we can answer any questions or we can just open up for discussion. Because I know we've got some people that are finishing up training and some people that have taught for multiple years. So any type of like cross, like knowledge cross would be great, but also you are on your summer and you should be able to spend that how you desire. And so I'll just open up for comments and we can do that. And if you need to head out to the beach, you please have a wonderful day.
Thanks. This has been helpful.
We're going to Kentucky Kingdom.
Hey, have a good day, bud. Fake beach.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you,
Hey,
guys, and we'll be reaching out to you guys if you have any questions.
That's great.
Hey, Terry, can you bring me the parking pass?
I was just gonna text Susan. Yes, I'll walk over as soon as I hang up here.
Okay, appreciate it. Do you want me to tell you where we're at?
You're on the first floor.
Yeah, next to where the ginormous step-looking things are.
I'll find you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you guys for all your time and effort to, share all this curriculum with us. And we look forward to work with you on getting students on board and learning.
Very cool.
Sounds great. It's gonna be a good school year for you all, I know.
Are there any questions that you all have while we're still here about the function of the class or like what about this or that? That I can answer or other teachers can go, Doug's a big liar on this. Really the best way to do this is this. I'm gonna take this as the training was the best experience in your life. It was so clear. It was so amazing. You have no questions. And I can just let my head grow even bigger than it currently is. Or if you have questions, please let me know.
And subscribe.
Right.
Doug,
Good
I just
stuff.
wanted to say if anybody is like teaching this for the first time and they want to bounce ideas off somebody or talk to somebody about something, I'll be glad to be available and can help people out.
I will also state that like Lynn does an amazing job with advisories and working with that, and I think it's a very what and I think that's an extra secret there. Like I think it's when it comes from me, I think it comes out as a very idealistic without the functional aspect to it. And I think being able to sit down with her and being like, no, this is how I get advisory members to truly feel and be invested within my students. Her projects end up being very impressive, one because of her class structure and who she is as an educator and her population, but also because of the input that those mentors provide. Where I remember the first year she really upscaled that. I got done and I walked up to her. I was like, "Well, that was really good, but those were really good for you. Like, what was the different? What was the secret sauce?" And a lot of that was just the mentor investment in that in her perspective, in my perspective. All right, my head will grow. All right, see you, Arlene. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I see you, Chris.
See you, Chris.
Thanks for everything. See you guys later.